Many viewers may also know you for taking on Donald Trump, as you said you would in your campaigns, and dealing with the civil fraud case against him in your jurisdiction in New York. So here for more than one reason. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's start with how Michelle Obama put it and the history that I raised, that there has not been as many states that have gone forward with breaking these barriers, and what you thought of what she said and what Kamala Harris thus represents.
So she dropped the mic. She was electric. She was magnificent. And Barack Obama, unfortunately, had to follow her. At the end of the day, there are two black women attorney generals. My little sister from Massachusetts, Adrienne Adams, and there are a number of elected officials in the state of New York who are my friends and who are my colleagues. We have a speaker who's African American. We have a number of members in the Senate and in the legislature. We have a Senate Majority Leader in the state of New York, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. And so we are leading by example. But the reality is that we do have our challenges. We need more women in the United States Senate. We need more black women attorney generals. We need more we definitely need a black woman governor, a number of black women governors. But the reality is that, you know, breaking a glass ceiling is nothing more than a historical footnote. The question really that I pose to individuals is, what do you do with the power that's in your hand? And so Michelle Obama talked about being transformative. And as the Attorney General of the state of New York, I've used the law both as a sword and as a shield of representing the interests of individuals who've historically been locked out of the sunshine of opportunity and bringing more voices to the table of power. And as the Attorney General of the state of New York, I've stood against bullies who recognize and think that they're above the law, but they are not. You know, we examine cases based on facts and based on evidence, not based on politics. And when the facts and the evidence against basically constitute a case of fraud, a pattern and practice of fraud and illegality, I have a duty and a responsibility to follow the law and to file a case. And I am prepared. You know, Donald Trump called me a number of names. He threatened my life. But that's okay, because faith and fear cannot share the same space. And I've got a responsibility and a duty to stand up and uphold the law.
Well, that's the other thing you have in common with Kamala Harris, your experience facing down Donald Trump as a civil defendant, and as you were careful to reiterate, not in your mind politically. But what did you learn or glean from that experience that might be relevant to her running against him and, if it holds, facing him in a debate next month?
To ignore the noise and to focus on the facts and to focus on issues that New Yorkers and Americans as a whole are facing, such as price gouging, such as individuals who believe that the rent is too damn high. Focus on fraud, illegality, privacy breaches. Focus on those issues that people care about. Inflation is going down, and I'm happy about that. But, you know, and the Democrats obviously are focusing on the felt needs of Americans, and that's really critically important. And we've got to speak to those felt needs. And we have to not be distracted by individuals who call us noise because they look small. And we will not be small because we've got a job to do, and that is representing the interests of Americans right now. And Kamala Harris is the most experienced candidate for president. In fact, she's more experienced than the last 4 presidents as the district attorney, as the attorney general of California, the largest state in the nation, as a United States senator who has traveled the globe and met with heads of state, and as the vice president of these United States. She is prepared on day one to step into the Oval Office and to get things done. We can return to normalcy once again, and she can bring the joy and she can bring the unity that we are all so desperately seeking. And last but not least, we will not cringe when we see President Harris give a press conference or make some comments. We will not, again, be, embarrassed by individuals who, again, are reduced to a very small figure. What we need, again, is a large figure in the office of the White House, and someone who will lead us and someone who we all will be proud of. And that, my friends, is President Kamala Harris. And I look forward that one glorious day to say, Madam President.
You know, it sounded like a strong closing argument, but that's what you're known for. I'm going to toss it back to Joy inside the hall.
Yes, indeed. You know, and I want to allow you just for a moment. There are, as you've mentioned, there have only been a small number of attorneys general who are black women. You are in a rarefied group of 3 that we know of, right? And Kamala Harris being one of the 3. Can you talk about some of the personal characteristics that you know about her, taking aside the politics? What it takes to be an AG, to hold that position, and specifically as a black woman, and anything that you can give us insights into her that you think would make her a strong president?
So as the Attorney General of the great state of New York, I had the honor and privilege of working with Attorney General Becerra, who was the Attorney General of California. And I work with all of the Attorney Generals all across this nation. We have brought lawsuits against opioid to address the opioid crisis. We have brought lawsuits against social media because we are concerned about the addictive algorithms that are addicting our children. We are concerned about the environment and making sure that children and individuals of color are not victims of environmental injustice, that they can drink clean air, that they can have clean air and drink clean water, that we've removed lead paint from pipes, particularly in communities of color. All you need to do is look to the issues. And there are just so many issues and so many individuals who are struggling right now, who need attorneys, who are not afraid to walk into the courtroom and say, I am the Attorney General of their respective state, and we are here to address an injustice. And these are the facts, and this is the law, and we want a remedy and/or damages. And we want it because, obviously, these individuals are entitled to it. And for far too long, they've been ignored, and they will be ignored no more.
I have to throw in the Jamaican American Coalition is a little bit excited. I know you're a member.
Yes.
I got a lot of family members that are members as well. Very quickly, how excited are the Jamaican Americans about Kamala Harris?
I know. This is just really an exciting moment.
Yeah.
Back in my beloved Brooklyn, people are just jumping up and down with joy and happiness. But most importantly, we're bringing this nation together as one, and we're returning to normalcy. That's what we want.